Hi, I'm Mark, 34, and last week I sat through the inheritance reading that turned my entire family tree upside down. My brother, Daniel, walked into the lawyer's office wearing a victory grin and a suit he clearly bought just for the occasion. He even brought his wife, who had the emotional range of a damp towel but clapped like she was at a Broadway show every time Daniel adjusted his tie. He didn't even wait for the lawyer to finish the first paragraph before leaning back and saying, "Well, Dad always said the responsible son should handle everything." Responsible? The man once burned our kitchen down trying to microwave a metal fork. But sure, call yourself the responsible one. Anyway, the lawyer kept reading, and I swear Daniel almost levitated from excitement. Our dad had a house, stocks, a classic car, a retirement account, the whole buffet, and Daniel snatched every item before the lawyer even got to the part where Dad said who got what. He nodded at the papers like he was confirming an Amazon delivery. "I'll take all assets," he said. Mark was always more sentimental. Sentimental, right? That's what you call being broke after paying Dad's hospital bills while Daniel sent thoughts and prayers from a beach in Mexico. But here's the thing Daniel forgot. I'd seen Dad 2 days before he passed, and he'd been very clear about something my brother had absolutely no clue about. So when Daniel puffed up his chest and announced he was claiming everything, I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't even blink. I just smiled across the table, folded my hands and said, "Dad, didn't you know?" Daniel froze, his wife froze, even the lawyer paused, like he suddenly remembered a twist in the movie he thought he'd already seen. And that's when the real story began. Daniel stared at me like I'd just spoken in ancient hieroglyphics. His wife, Marissa, blinked twice, probably trying to figure out if I'd lost my mind or if she'd missed a page of the script she thought life was following. The lawyer, Mr. Aldridge, cleared his throat and pushed his glasses up like he was about to read me my last rights. "Mark," he said cautiously, "we haven't reached your father's final addendum yet." Addendum, I swear. Daniel's eyebrow twitched so hard it almost detached from his face. Dad wasn't exactly known for his organization. This was a man who labeled his spice jars with Sharpie and crossed out the label every time he changed what was inside. Paprika, then oregano, then definitely not paprika. So when Mr. Aldridge pulled out a sealed envelope with my name in Dad's shaky handwriting, Daniel practically lunged across the table. "Why does he have one?" he demanded. "Dad never kept secrets from me." Which was hilarious. Dad kept secrets from Daniel like it was a competitive sport. He hid his good whiskey because Daniel chugged it like water. He hid his car keys because Daniel once tried to borrow the car while grounded at 28 years old. He even hid his reading glasses because Daniel kept sitting on them by accident. Mr. Aldridge ignored the outburst like he'd been trained for years in the martial arts of dealing with entitled sons. He slid the envelope toward himself and broke the seal. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Handwritten. Short. To the point. Dad always saved his energy for the knockout punch. "Your father left Mark specific instructions," Mr. Aldridge said. "And Daniel, these instructions directly affect how the estate is divided." Daniel scoffed, not a little scoff, a theatrical one, the kind someone makes when they think they're the protagonist and the world is full of extras. "Oh, come on, Dad would never leave anything important to him." "He meant me. I was the him." The lawyer unfolded the paper and read aloud. "To my son Mark, who stood by me when I had nothing left, and who knows the truth about the money." Daniel jerked upright. "What money?" Exactly the reaction I expected. I leaned back, crossed my arms, and said, "Dad, didn't you know?" Daniel's face drained, because he finally realized this was not the day he thought he was going to have. Daniel shot out of his chair like someone had plugged him into a wall socket. "What money?" he repeated, voice climbing higher with every syllable. "Dad didn't have any secret money. I handled his finances." Which was true. By handled, he meant he once downloaded a budgeting app, forgot the password, and blamed the bank for hiding buttons. This was the same man who thought APR stood for approximate price, right? Mr. Aldridge didn't flinch, he just kept reading the letter like it was a grocery list. "Mark knows where the missing account is, and only he will understand what it means." Daniel slammed both palms on the table. "Missing account? What missing account?" Marissa grabbed his sleeve and whispered something like, "Just calm down." But she said it with the enthusiasm of someone trying to defuse a bomb using oven mitts. I waited for the lawyer to finish, because this was the moment Dad had set up years ago. The moment he warned me might happen, the moment he'd smirked at me in the hospital bed and said, When I'm gone, let your brother think he's won, it'll make watching him fall much more entertaining. And wow, Dad was right, it was a show.mr. Aldrich placed the letter down and pulled out an old, cracked binder. He opened it, flipped through faded pages, and stopped at a bookmark section. Gentlemen, he said, sliding the binder between us. This is the record of your father's financial assets, and yes, there is a missing account he never disclosed publicly. Daniel practically dove onto the table. Where is it? What's the balance? Why didn't anyone tell me? I couldn't help it. I laughed out a real, absolutely inappropriate laugh. Daniel whipped his head toward me, eyes wild. What's funny? You, I said. Because you have no idea what Dad actually put in that account, and you have no idea why he trusted me with it. Daniel grabbed the binder and flipped frantically through the pages, checking balances, notes, dates, until he stopped cold, his eyes locked onto a single-line item highlighted in yellow. A number he had never seen before. A number so large he whispered it instead of saying it. No, that can't be right. Dad was broke. Not exactly. But Daniel had never looked beyond the surface, never asked the right questions, never cared about anything except what he thought he was owed. Where's the money, Mark? He asked, voice trembling. Where did Dad hide it? And that was the turning point, because finally, after years of being dismissed, stepped on, and treated like the spare son, I got to drop the truth that Dad left for me to deliver. It's not hidden, I said. It's protected. Daniel blinked. Protected by who? I met his eyes. By me. Daniel's mouth opened and closed like a confused goldfish. He looked at me, then at the lawyer, then back at me, waiting for someone to tell him this was a prank show and a camera crew would burst in yelling gotcha. Nobody did. Mr. Aldrich folded his hands neatly on the table. Your father signed all rights to that account over to Mark 3 years ago. Daniel's face twisted. 3 years? He was fined 3 years ago. Why would he give Mark anything back then? I almost felt bad for him, almost. Because, I said slowly, that was the year he found out you'd been draining his other savings. The room went still. Marissa stiffened beside him. The lawyer didn't react. He had known this part, but Daniel looked like someone had yanked the earth out from under his feet. That's not true, he sputtered. I helped Dad manage his money. He told me to use his account. Did he tell you to use it for crypto schemes? For business investments? For your Lakeview bachelor weekend before you were even married? Daniel's eyes darted violently, searching for something to grab onto, some version of reality where he wasn't the villain. I was going to pay him back. You didn't. Silence, then he snapped. This is ridiculous. If Dad gave Mark something, I should get half. I'm the eldest, I took care of the house, I handled everything. Mark didn't even visit. That last line felt like a punch I didn't deserve, but I didn't let it show. I didn't visit? I said quietly. I was the one driving him to chemo. I was the one managing his medication. I was the one working double shifts to pay what insurance wouldn't cover. Daniel's jaw dropped slightly. But I kept going because I'd swallowed too much for too long. You were the one who said hospitals made you anxious. You were the one who showed up once in 6 months with a gift card and patted yourself on the back like you solved cancer. Even Marissa leaned away from him at that. But still, Daniel wasn't done. He jabbed a finger toward the binder. That money belongs to both of us. No, I said. It doesn't. He lunged across the table, grabbing the binder like it was a lifeline. Where is it, Mark? What bank? What country? What code? Tell me. For the first time, I smiled. Really smiled. Because Dad had predicted this exact moment. And in the letter taped inside the binder, in Dad's unmistakable handwriting, were 7 words he wanted Daniel to hear from me. Asked Mark, he earned what you wasted. Daniel froze. His face drained. His hand dropped from the binder like it burned him. And he realized, maybe for the first time ever, that Dad truly had seen everything. Daniel slumped back into his chair like someone had unplugged him from the wall. For once in his life, his mouth wasn't moving, no excuses, no interruptions, no dramatic claims about being the family hero, just silence, heavy, stunned silence. Mr. Aldrich, consummate professional that he was, simply flipped to the next page in his folder. As per your father's legal instructions, he said, the estate is divided into 2 categories, assets tied to debt, and assets tied to the protected account. Daniel perked up. He heard, divided, and immediately latched onto it like a drowning man grabbing a pool noodle. Right, so I still get something. Certainly. the lawyer said calmly. Your father left you the house. Daniel sat up, victorious again. See? That's more like it. I knew Dad wouldn't leave me with nothing. And, the lawyer continued, he left you the mortgage. Daniel blinked. What mortgage? Mr. Aldridge stacked the next 3 papers in front of him. Your parents refinanced the house twice. Your father took out an equity loan when his medical bills became overwhelming, and he tapped the final sheet. Your brother co-signed the consolidation loan used to keep the house from being repossessed 6 months ago. Slowly, the realization crept over Daniel's face. The house wasn't an inheritance, that it was a debt package with windows. What about everything else? Daniel croaked. The classic car? The lawyer said. Sold 2 years ago to pay hospital fees, the retirement account? Emptied for treatment, the savings? Used to cover a year of assisted care. Daniel's voice cracked. So, what's left? And that's when Mr. Aldridge turned to me. Mark receives the protected account in full. Daniel shot to his feet. How much? The lawyer didn't need to answer. I did. I leaned forward, calm, steady, nothing like the younger son Daniel always assumed was beneath him. Dad liquidated his business before he died, I said. The business you abandoned the moment it stopped being fun. Daniel's lips parted slowly. And, I continued, he moved everything into one final account, a private, untouchable account he put in my name when he found out where his money was actually disappearing. Daniel swallowed hard. How much? I said it plainly. $784,000. He staggered backward like I'd physically hit him. That's... Dad was never rich, he didn't, how, he saved. I said. He worked, he sacrificed, all the things you never paid attention to because you assumed the world would hand you whatever you demanded. Marissa touched Daniel's arm, but he jerked away like her hand had burned him. This isn't fair, he whispered. I'm the eldest, you deserved exactly what Dad left you. I said. Nothing he didn't think you'd waste again. Daniel's eyes filled with something I'd never seen on him before. Fear. Real, hollow fear. Because for the first time, he understood that Dad hadn't just given me the money, he'd given me the responsibility, and given Daniel the consequences. Daniel sank back into his chair like the air had been punched out of him. His eyes darted from the binder to me to the lawyer, searching for some glitch in reality he could exploit. But this wasn't a video game. There was no respawn button, no secret cheat code to magically undo 4 years of draining Dad's accounts while insisting it was for investments. Dad wouldn't do this to me, he whispered. He didn't, I said. You did. Mr. Aldridge cleared his throat again. The man truly deserved a medal for patience. There is one more item your father left instructions for. Daniel's head snapped up like a hopeful dog hearing someone shake a treat bag. What? What is it? Something for me? In a sense, the lawyer said as he reached into his drawer and pulled out a small black USB drive. He slid it across the table toward me. Your father left this for Mark only. Daniel practically screamed. Why does he get everything? I didn't pick up the USB, not yet. I already knew what was on it. Dad had told me, not the contents. He'd been too tired to explain details near the end, but the purpose. It's something Dad wanted me to have, I said. I didn't ask for it. Daniel laughed, a weird, high-pitched laugh that made even Marissa inch away. Sure you didn't ask, you probably convinced him when he was drugged up, manipulated him. That's exactly your style, sneaking in and taking what's mine. Mine. There it was. The entitlement he wore like cologne. I leaned forward. Daniel, would you like to know what's on this USB? He glared. Obviously. Proof, I said, his face strained. Proof of what? I tilted my head. Of everything you took from Dad. Marissa covered her mouth. Mr. Aldridge adjusted his glasses, but Daniel tried to laugh it off again, even though it came out shaky this time. That's ridiculous. Dad didn't even know how to use a USB. Dad didn't, I said. But the accountant did. Mr. Aldridge nodded. Your father met privately with his accountant 2 months before his passing. He compiled every discrepancy, every unauthorized transfer, every unapproved withdrawal. It's all documented. Daniel froze. And, the lawyer added, your father instructed that if Mark chose to pursue it, he could legally recover all missing funds through a civil claim. That's when Daniel's composure shattered. He slammed both fists on the table. You're gonna sue me? You're actually going to sue your own brother? I shrugged. Depends. On what? On whether you walk out of here and never ask me for money again. Daniel stared at me, stunned, like he'd never imagined a version of life where I wasn't his safety net. You'd really do that to me? He whispered. You did it to Dad, I replied. All I'm doing is making sure you can't do it to me. Mr. Aldrich calmly slid a set of papers toward me, documents granting me full control over Dad's final account and the legal power to decide what happened next. Your father trusted you, Mark, he said. Deeply. Daniel looked between us, breath shaky, eyes full of a panic I'd never seen on him before. You could practically hear the gears grinding in his head. If Mark keeps the money, I'm broke. If Mark sues me, I'm ruined. If Mark does nothing, maybe I still have a chance. And then he did the one thing I'd been waiting for. He begged. Mark, come on, man, please. Hearing Daniel beg was surreal, like watching a wolf try to meow. He shifted in his chair, rubbing his palms together, the bravado completely drained from him. I didn't know Dad was hurting that bad, he said. I didn't mean to take money he needed, I thought. I don't know, I thought he'd be fine. I didn't think it mattered. That's the problem, I said. You never think anything matters unless it affects you. His eyes glistened with something that might have been tears, or panic sweat, hard to tell with Daniel. Look, I get it, I messed up. I know I wasn't around like you were, but we're brothers, you can't just cut me out of everything. I leaned back. I didn't cut you out, Dad did. That landed like a right hook. Even Marissa dropped her gaze. Daniel swallowed hard. What if I pay you back? All of it, every cent. I'll get a second job, I'll sell my Tesla. Your Tesla is leased. He winced. Okay, fine, but I'll figure something out. Just, don't take the money, don't sue me. I watched him, really watched him, for the first time, without the fog of childhood bias or guilt, or that leftover sense of obligation our father had spent years trying to scrub out of me. He wasn't sorry. He was scared. There's a difference. And Dad had drilled that difference into me every time Daniel broke something and lied about it. Every time Daniel blamed someone else. Every time Daniel expected someone to clean up his mess. Here's the thing, Daniel, I said. You already had your chance. You had Dad's savings, you had the house, you had every opportunity to show him, and me, that you had changed. His voice cracked. I can change now. I didn't raise my voice, didn't get angry, didn't need to. That's not my job to believe anymore. Daniel's shoulders sagged. He knew the begging wasn't working. So he switched tactics. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, one I recognized, one I hadn't seen in years. Dad wanted you to have this, he said, voice trembling. I stared at it. That was Dad's, I said quietly. You weren't supposed to touch it. He pushed it toward me. I know, but I kept it. I shouldn't have. I'm sorry. Just take it, please. I opened the box. Inside was Dad's old signet ring, the one he only wore on important days, the one he planned to pass down to the son who showed he was ready to lead the family. And underneath it was a folded note. My chest tightened as I lifted it carefully, like it might crumble. My name was on the outside. I unfolded it. Dad's handwriting, sharp, firm, unmistakable. Mark, if you're reading this, then everything went exactly as I expected. This ring is yours, and so is the future of this family. Do. What I couldn't, set the boundary. I closed the note. Daniel watched me like a man waiting for a verdict that would decide his entire life. And in a way, he was. Because Dad had left the money. But the consequences? Those were left to me. I slipped Dad's signet ring into my pocket and shut the velvet box. Daniel watched every motion like I was dismantling the last piece of his safety net. His whole life, he'd walked around with the certainty that someone, Dad, me, the universe, would catch him each time he screwed up. Seeing that net disappear shook him more than anything else today. Mark, please, he said quietly. Don't do this. Don't let Dad's bitterness poison us. He wasn't bitter, I said. He was tired. There's a difference. Daniel exhaled shakily, fingers tapping the table, his mind sprinting to find an angle that didn't exist. He'd always found one before. A loophole, a technicality, someone to blame, a voice louder than the truth. Not now. Here's what's going to happen, I said. He straightened instantly, like I was holding out a life preserver. You're keeping the house. Relief flooded his face so fast it almost embarrassed me for him. And you're keeping the debt. That relief drained just as fast. His jaw slackened, his eyes darted to the lawyer, the binder, back to me, as if waiting for someone to say I was kidding. You wanted responsibility, I said. Now you have it. He let out a strangled sound, half scoff, half plea. But he didn't argue, not yet. And the money? He asked, voice cracking. I'm keeping it. All of it? He said, almost whispering, as if a quieter tone might soften the blow. All of it. Even Marissa inhaled sharply. She finally understood the math of their marriage in a way she probably never wanted to. Daniel pressed his palms against his forehead. So you're just cutting me out of my own family? That's what this is. No, I said. I'm setting the boundary Dad wanted set a long time ago. He blinked as if I'd slapped him. What boundary? That you don't get to drag me into your chaos anymore. Dad carried it until it nearly killed him. I'm not doing the same. The room went quiet, not the uncomfortable kind, more like the kind where truth finally settles after years of being shoved into corners. Daniel finally spoke, a broken little whisper. I didn't know he was hurting that bad. You didn't ask, I said. You didn't want to know. There's a difference. Something in his expression shifted, less denial, more hollow realization, but it was impossible to tell whether anything meaningful had reached him, or if he was just mourning his old life. I stood. Mr. Aldridge rose as well and shook my hand with a small, respectful nod, not pity, not approval, acknowledgement, the kind Dad used to give me when he didn't have the strength to say the words. As I headed toward the door, I paused beside Daniel. He stared straight ahead. Eyes glassy, jaw clenched. Dad didn't do this to punish you, I said. He did it because he hoped losing the easy way out might finally make you grow up. A single muscle in his cheek twitched, but he didn't respond. Maybe pride held him still, maybe shame, maybe both. For once, he had no excuse, no speech, no accusation left to throw. I stepped into the hallway and let the office door click shut behind me. The air outside felt different, lighter, like someone finally opened a window after years of stale air. I walked out the front door, sunlight warming my face. The signet ring in my pocket felt heavier than metal. It felt like a responsibility. Dad trusted me with, not money, not power, but clarity. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the spare son, the backup plan, the janitor sweeping up after my brother's disasters. I wasn't the one kept in the dark while someone else played air. I was the one Dad believed would choose the harder, cleaner path. And I finally did. Sometimes the real inheritance isn't wealth. It's permission to stop carrying the people who refuse to carry themselves. That day, I didn't just leave the lawyer's office. I stepped into a life that was finally mine.